Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Yamuna Tiravana Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai, Shri Giraj Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Nitya Gaura Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 22, Text 46. You'll find it on the screen there. Svam eva brahmano bhungte. Svam eva brahmano bhungte. Svam vaste svam dadati cha. Svam vaste svam dadati cha. Tasyeva nugrahe nanam. Tasyeva nugrahe nanam. Bunchate kshatriya daya. Bunchate kshatriya daya. Svam eva brahmano bhungte. Svam vaste svam dadati cha. Tasyaiva nugrahe nanam. Bunchate kshatriya daya. Prabhus. Svam eva brahmano bhungte. Svam vaste svam dadati cha. Tasya vanugrahe nanam. Bunchate kshatriya daya. Swameva brahmano bhungte. Swam vaste swam dadati cha. Tasyeva nugrahe nanam. Bunchate kshatriya daya. Swameva brahmano bhungte. Swam vaste swam dadati cha. Tasya vanugrahe nanam. Bunchate kshatriya daya. Swameva brahmano bhungte. Swam vaste swam dadati cha. Tasyeva nugrahe nanam. Bunchate kshatriya daya. Swam, own, eva, certainly, brahmana, the Brahmana, bhungte, enjoy, Svam, own. Vaste, clothing. Svam, own. Dadati, gives in charity. Cha, and. Tasya, his. Eva, certainly. Anugrahena, by the mercy of. Anam, food grains. Bhungchate, eats. Kshatriya adhaya, other divisions of society, headed by the Kshatriyas. Translation. The Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras eat their food by virtue of the Brahmanas' mercy. It is the Brahmanas who enjoy their own propriety, clothe themselves with their own property, and give charity with their own property. Let's repeat. The Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras eat their food by virtue of the Brahmanas' mercy. It is the Brahmanas who enjoy their own property, clothe themselves with their own property, and give charity with their own property. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead is worshipped with the words Namo Brahmanya Devaya, which indicate that the Supreme Lord accepts the Brahmanas as worshipable gods. The Supreme Lord is worshipped by everyone, yet to teach others, He worships the Brahmanas. Everyone should follow the instructions of the Brahmana. Everyone should follow the instructions of the Brahmanas, for their only business is to spread Shabda Brahma, or Vedic knowledge, all over the world. Whenever there is a scarcity of Brahmanas to spread the Vedic knowledge, chaos throughout human society results. Since Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are direct servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they do not depend on others. In actuality, everything in the world belongs to the Brahmanas, and out of their humility, the Brahmanas accept charity from the Kshatriyas or kings and the Vaishyas or merchants. Everything belongs to the Brahmanas, but the Kshatriya government and the mercantile people keep everything in custody like bankers. Whenever the Brahmana needs money, the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas should supply it. It is like a savings account with money which the depositor can draw out at his will. The Brahmanas, being engaged in the service of the Lord, have very little time to handle the finances of the world, and therefore the riches are kept by the Kshatriyas or the kings, who are to produce money upon the Brahmanas' demand. Actually, the Brahmanas or Vaishyas do not live at others' costs. They live by spending their own money, although it appears that they are collecting this money from others. Kshatriyas and Vaishyas have no right to give charity, for whatever they possess belongs to the Brahmanas. Therefore, the charity should be given by the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas under the instructions of the Brahmanas. Unfortunately, at present moment there is a scarcity of Brahmanas, and since the so-called Kshatriyas and Vaishyas do not carry out the orders of the Brahmanas, the world is in a chaotic condition. The second line of this verse indicates that the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas and Sudras eat only by virtue of the Brahmanas' mercy. In other words, they should not eat anything which is forbidden by the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas and Vaishnavas know what to eat, and by their personal example, they do not eat anything which is not offered first to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They eat only prasad, or remnants of the food offered to the Lord. The Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras should eat only Krishna prasad, which is afforded them by the mercy of the Brahmanas. They cannot open slaughterhouses and eat meat, fish, or eggs, or drink liquor, or earn money for this purpose without authorization. In the present age, because society is not guided by Brahmanical instruction, the whole population is only absorbed in sinful activities. Consequently, everyone is deserved deservedly being punished by the laws of nature. This is a situation in the age of Kali. Swameva brahmano bhungte swam vaste swam dadati cha tasyeva nugrahe nanam bunchate kshatriya daya. The Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Sudras eat their food by virtue of the Brahmanas' mercy. It is the Brahmanas who enjoy their own propriety, clothe themselves with their property, and give charity with their own property. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. This is a very interesting verse. It's giving a revolutionary concept. Just in case someone does not know what these four orders that are being described in this verse are, Srila Prabhupada in the Vedic culture gives us a unique structure for society. In this societal structure, it shows that how people have certain inclinations by nature, and if they're engaged in those inclinations, society runs smoothly. And these inclinations are divided into four broad categories, where the social body is described literally like a body. So the legs of the body is the Shudras, and these are the artisans and people engaged in physical labor. The chest and arms of the body, the chest of the body is the Vaishyas, the chest, the stomach area, is the Vaishyas, and these are your businessmen, your agriculture, where money is generated. Agriculture and business falls under Vaishyas. The arms of the social body are the Kshatriyas, and this is your government administration, and your warriors. They fall under this class of people. And the head of the body is the Brahmanas. The Brahmanas who are not necessarily working in the world, but their aim is solely focused on disseminating spiritual concepts, spiritual knowledge to the world to show how everything else in the social body can be engaged. Now, when you look at these ashvarnas, these varnas, it's very obvious to see that the social body has the feet, it has the stomach and the chest area, it has the legs, but not much of a head. Not much of a head exists. There is some portions of it in some places, but even if there is a head, the chest, the arms, and the legs don't follow the head, which gives you a very lopsided body. So that's just like a brief intro, because everything else in this purport is based on that concept, and if that concept is not down, everything else won't make sense. Luckily for me, a lecture on this verse was spoken by Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Swami. So I was able to grab all the points. I was just like, yeah. So when it's my points, I'll tell you it's my points. So it's a revolutionary concept what Srila Prabhupada is putting forward here, or explaining from the verse itself, because he's saying that the Brahmanas are the owners of everything. And everybody else is the caretakers. Now that's interesting because the Brahmanas are the ones who don't own anything. They are the ones you're going to find, traditionally in India, you're going to find on the streets begging. They're going from place to place asking for a little bit of grain, just so that their body and their soul can be maintained. The Brahmanas are the ones who are not engaging in the world, not engaging in, according to the strict definition of Brahmana, not necessarily working in the world. So not earning a salary, because that was considered Shudra. Shudra is actually the only class that earns a salary. This is traditional Vedic culture. Nobody quit your jobs. This is traditional Vedic culture, which I'm not saying applies wholly today, but just for us to see the ideal before we discuss what's in front of our face. So the ideal is that the Brahmanas are not engaged in work, in paid work as such, but so these people who actually don't have anything are the ones who are the proprietors. And this is interesting and also apt, because it's when you have something that it's hard to let go of. But when you know it's not yours, then you will use it properly. So, and this is okay. This is actually the right understanding that the Brahmanas are the owners, because the owner is the person who knows how to utilize the object properly. Again, revolutionary concept. The owner is the one who knows how to utilize the object properly. Now, interestingly, is that we would think like, hey, I worked for the money is mine. And because I generate the income, then I should know how to use it. Right? But not according to the Bhagavatam. Because the person who generates the money is coming from the Vaishya mentality, and therefore that person doesn't necessarily know how to engage the money. And therefore everything is a property of the Brahmanas. And according to the way the Brahmana directs, that is how money should be used for the overall benefit of the society. So that's what's being said here. But then, of course, the Brahmana has to actually be a Brahmana. And that's the thrust of things. Because we see in social classes throughout the history of time, everything collapses when the Brahmanas are not Brahmanas. You look at the French Revolution, you look at the society classes that they had. Oh God, now I test my history, I can't remember it. Bourgeoisie was the middle class and upper class, and then basically everything fell apart when the upper classes that are meant to be leading by example and purity become contaminated by desires that are lower class desires, and therefore they start usurping things for their own benefit, and then the whole social structure falls. So now when we look at that from the perspective of us being in Kali Yuga, which means we're already looking through a very warped lens. Because through a warped lens, we're looking at an ideal. So it's not always applicable fully. But according to the Shastra, everybody's born a Shudra. And by mantra, we get the opportunity to become a Brahmana. And that Brahmana maintains Brahmanical status by studying the Veda. By being able to study the Veda, we're twice born, we're in Vipra. But only if that person actually knows the Supreme Lord are they actually Brahmana. So who and how, who is a Brahmana is a question to ask, and it's a question that we can talk about a little bit later. So Keshav Maharaj was mentioning that in the Krishna book, when Krishna swallows the forest fire, it's interesting because we know that in Krishna book, all the different demons represent certain anarthas that we need to overcome. And Krishna deals differently with different demons. But specifically with the forest fire, he swallows it. Now, if you were writing the script, you would think like it's fire. Like could have thrown a bucket of water, could have waved his hands and created wind and, and let the fire disappear. But Krishna swallows it. Anybody has any ideas of what the fire represents in terms of anartha, or why Krishna had to swallow it? Any thoughts? Well, kind of all anarthas represent our material desires, yeah. But, then it's also not a wrong answer. So March is mentioning that specifically this fire is representing intercommunal discord, which basically means arguing within the communities. Discord or misunderstandings or things that breed argument within a community. Because he was saying that the forest fire starts when two bamboo rods are rubbed together. Jai Shishi Radha Radhanath ki jai. When two pieces of bamboo are in the forest, and if they are rubbed together by friction, then the fire is generated. And similarly, if within a community, there's friction between members, that's how the fire starts. So he was saying that within a community, this is what the forest fire represents in Krishna Leela. It represents that when there is friction within a community, or arguing within a community, or differences of opinions within a community, that causes a fire. And then he said, Krishna had to swallow the forest fire because in a community, when there is discord, when there is difference of opinions, the only way that can be solved is through the presence of the Brahmana. Because the mouth of Krishna represents, the head, we know, represents the Brahmana. So the mouth, we also know Krishna's mouth, is represented by the Brahmana, because you'd said that if you want to feed Krishna, you feed him through the mouths of the Brahmanas. So Krishna's mouth represents the Brahmana. And so when a community is in that situation, when there's discord, when there's arguing, when there's difference of opinions, it's the presence of the Brahmana that is able to say, this way. And because everybody respects that Brahmana, they're able to let go of their opinions and then just follow. And you would have had this experience, right? Like you have an issue, somebody else has an issue, and somebody senior that both people respect comes forward and says, okay, we're going this way, then it's easier for them to let go of their opinions, rather than just between me and you, because there's respect for the elder person who's coming with a deeper spiritual knowledge. So therefore, this was for me, a really important point, that the presence of the Brahmana is able to lead a community in a single focused direction. And we see that with Srila Prabhupada, because everyone rallied around Srila Prabhupada, everyone's energy and focus was around Srila Prabhupada, that energy was focused like an arrow. It could shoot in one direction, In the situation we find ourselves now, we have many followers of Srila Prabhupada, and each one rallies energy in different ways. And so then we have different arrows, and they may shoot in different directions, and that's not necessarily wrong, that gives us variety, but it does mean that our focal energy is in different places, So therefore, a community needs Brahmanas. Because without those pure Brahmanas in the community, it's hard for a community to be peaceful. Because the arguments and the fire that Krishna is talking about will always be there. Wherever there's two people, there's opinions. It'll always be there. So therefore, the presence of a strong Brahmana unites a community. And the thing that the Brahmana gives is a vision. The Brahmana is able to give vision. Again, it is the head of society. So not only is the mouth in the head, but the eyes are in the head. So therefore, the Brahmana is able to give vision. And this vision, he was giving the example that there were two brothers who grew up with an alcoholic father. And one of them had a certain experience, both of them obviously had the same sort of childhood growing up because they both had the alcoholic father. But one grew up and became an alcoholic, and the other grew up and completely abstained from alcohol. And when you speak to both of them, you ask them, so why did you become an alcoholic? He said, because my father was an alcoholic. And he spoke to the other one and says, so why did you abstain from alcohol? Because my father was an alcoholic. So it's not necessarily just the experience, but pending with the nature that we come with, we're able to translate a certain experience in a certain way. So therefore, all the four classes of society may have the same experience. But the Brahmana is meant to translate that experience in a certain way, to give vision to the society. The same, they're looking at this, they're experiencing the same father, but the outcomes are different because the mentality is different. And the mentality of the Brahmana is meant to give that sort of vision. So, what are the things that make up our vision? One is nature, what we come with, our karmic blueprint. And the other is nurture, the experience that we've been through in life, the environment that we've been through in life, the ideals that we've been imprinted through from childhood through now. Both these things contribute to what sort of vision we will have. But that's not the only way that we, and so therefore our nature and our nurture contribute to our vision. But the third thing that contributes to our vision is Brahmagya, means knowledge given to us by the pure Brahmana. And so all of us would have the experience, of a Vaishnava coming into our lives and giving us knowledge which now shifts our vision. Whatever our nature, whatever our nurture, we now have this vision also coming into our lives of a superior Vaishnava, of a Brahmana, and they're now going to adjust our vision because of that knowledge. So that's a third component of vision. Not just our nature, not just how we've been nurtured, but the Brahmagya, the Brahmagyan that's come into our lives. And again, that's why we need Brahmanas, because they're able to provide that. They're able to provide that clear direction. Now, and therefore the Brahmana is able to change people's lives simply because he can change, or he or she can change their vision. Now, there was one aspect that Marge was mentioning about how the four Varnas are there and they fight a certain aspect of society. Not society, but they fight a certain quality. For example, the Shudras are there to fight laziness, because they're meant to be the physical workers. Or even those that, also there's a sense of selflessness, because the Shudras, when I remember Urmila Prabhu's definitions, they also not just, we kind of have this idea that Shudras are just the manual physical labor, but it's not just that. Shudras are also those who are artisanal. They create for somebody else to enjoy. Like carpentry. You create this beautiful piece and then somebody else enjoys it. Or a painter creates a beautiful piece and somebody else enjoys it. Or even a cook, But of course, this is not to say that this is all Shudra labor, because when you add the dimension of devotion, it takes it to another level, But like you put all your energy in something, but it's for someone else's enjoyment. And of course, that's very devotional on its own, But that's actually what Shudra is by definition. The Vaishya fights insufficiency. The Vaishya is concerned, like, is there enough? That's the question of the Vaishya. And it wants to protect against there not being enough. The Kshatriya fights injustice. When he sees that she sees that there is like discrimination within a society. When he or she sees that there is that the laws have been contravened, then the Kshatriya is the one who wants to fight injustice. But what does the Brahmana fight? The Brahmana fights ignorance. The Brahmana wants to see that knowledge prevails. And so therefore, in a community, all these aspects need to be there. And he was making the point that in a temple, all these aspects need to be there. Because sometimes when we look at these Varnas, they're super far away from us. They almost sometimes have nothing to do with our lives. Because none of us ever think okay, I'm this Varna. We don't think like that, right? But within a community, you will find naturally there'll be those that are more inclined to the physical labor, that are fighting the laziness. There'll be those that are fighting insufficiency, trying to bring in the money. There are those that are going to be fighting the injustice, fighting for the cause of the people. And there are those that are going to be fighting ignorance. And if any one of these are lacking within a community, then there's a problem. It'll be lopsided in one way or the other. And when he said it like that, then I thought oh yeah, now it brings it kind of home, Otherwise it's just okay, 4 Varnas, and how does it apply to my life? So the moment one of those aspects are lost, then it becomes a problem. And the other aspect that he was mentioning was that, and even if you see, if you have a meeting, you have a devotee would always have meetings, but if you have a meeting of people and there's a single problem, there's a problem that we need to deal with, then you'll see that those who are by nature inclined to the Shudra work, they will protect security. Now, when I mean security, I don't mean guards at the door. Security means that, do we have enough food? Do we have enough water? Is the physical and emotional needs taken care of? Those who are Vaishya, they will value the money. How do we solve this problem? Let's grow a business. Those who are Kshatriya, they will look for the justice. They will look for how can we make this a just situation for everybody. And those who are Brahmana, they're going to say, let's educate everybody. Let's educate them so we don't face this problem. And the thing is that all of these aspects are important. All these aspects are needed. But without the education and the knowledge, the spiritual basis lacks. And whereas any of the others, if you don't have, it's a problem. But when the Brahminical knowledge isn't there, then the spiritual foundation cracks. And then that is the major problem. So the thing is, especially in this verse, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that the money belongs to the Brahmanas, the property belongs to the Brahmanas, everything is the Brahmanas, you just seem to have it in your pocket and you're just taking care of it. But when money comes into the equation, there's always a sense of contamination. Because we'll see it with Kali, in this famous story of Kali asking Maharaj Parikshit, where can I reside? And Maharaj Parikshit says you can reside, wherever there's breaking of the regulative principles. And Kali says, but none of that happens here. And so you can reside where there's gold, which means you can reside where there's money. And whenever money comes into an equation, you have to be careful. Maharaj was mentioning that, like universities, they were places of learning. As soon as money comes into the equation, they become a business. And you can see it on campuses. It is not even funny. Like nowadays, as we go on campus, there's no real student societies. There's only corporate events, corporate people that come to sort of canvass the students. That bank wants you to take their card. This group wants you to take their cell phone network. This group wants you to take... They're just literally preying on the students because they know that this will become the working and earning class. And how often do people change their bank? So once you got them when they're 18, they're going to probably be with you till they die. So literally you see the commercial sector preying on the universities and the universities allowing it. Why? Because they're palming them with money. So that's how education has become a business. Hospitals were meant to be about wellness. Were meant to be about, like the profession of a doctor. It's so noble. It's so noble. But really, what's happened to our medical sector? It's a business. It's an utter business. Just look at medical insurance. Complete business. And similarly, justice system, the justice system, it's meant to be something that brings about law and order and fairness. But when you look at all these things that happen in our justice system, especially like with the offering of, like, what you call those things when you need to get, when you get a certain government job, you put tenders, especially with things like tenders, etc., you see that it becomes a business. So that's what happens when the Vaishya mentality has dominated sectors, dominated without Brahmanical control. And in the same way, if these, that's why when there's money, there's the element of contamination, and therefore it has to be handled very carefully, very carefully. And the same comes within the Krishna consciousness movement. It's not like it doesn't apply to us. We have the same inclinations. And therefore, when money enters, what can happen, Maharaj was saying, what can happen is that the focus of it being a movement where we are educating and changing the world can be diluted. And what it can happen is that can be lost in the pursuit of money and in the pursuit of us being comfortable in our situation. And therefore we need brahmanas, because brahmanas are meant to keep the pure vision. So the problem is that when those who, he was saying that the problem is when those who make the money think that it's because they make the money, they should know how to spend it. But that's not true. And it's one of the points I started with. It's not true. Because those that make the money will spend it in the Vaishya way, which is in a way to make more money. But then we fall under the contamination then that money brings. But those who make the money have to realize that they make money that is not theirs. But it's for the Brahmana to direct on how it should be spent for the betterment of the entire community. Because the Brahmana is the one who's not attached to that money, or is not meant to be attached to that money. And the Brahmana is the one who can see how that money can be used according to Krishna's will. So those were interesting concepts that Keshav Maharaj was putting forward that really showcase how even though the Varnas may be a little bit alien to us currently, how they're still active even if we don't completely identify with one or the other. So some of the thoughts that came into my mind was, okay, so who is a Brahmana? When I took second initiation, it was kind of like said, okay, this is happening. So we thought, I thought like, oh, can I speak to my spiritual master and say like, I don't think I'm ready for this, and every time I tried, it was Rath Yatra, so good luck, and it was the day before, and I was like, okay, we have to speak to him now because there's no chance, and then, so we kind of tried to ambush him, which we did, and then he kind of said, oh, you want to say all the reasons you're not ready for the initiation? You can tell me tomorrow after the yagya. And so at the yagya, which was in this temple room, there were 60 odd initiates, and it was chaos. There were 2 fires. There was more grain in my hair than that went into the yagya, and it's just like I was wondering, like, what is this? I don't know what I'm doing. In some sense I felt, I don't know what I'm doing. Of course, and then you're given, Gayatri mantras, and these mantras are powerful. But a question that I've asked myself over the years is, do the mantras make me a Brahmana? Do the mantras really make me a Brahmana? in some sense, somebody will say, like, okay, what comes from second initiation? People have asked the question, why take it anyway? Like, you got the holy name, you can go back to Godhead. Do we have to give people second initiation? Do we just give them because we want them on the altar? Do we give them because they're preaching, because there's some like mystical power that's bestowed upon them now when you have the second initiation? And all these questions, have been around in the atmosphere. And of course, like, it's true. The mantras do make you a Brahmana. It makes you a Brahmana in the sense it gives you an opportunity to rise to the mode of goodness. Whether you take that opportunity is up to you. It's like there's a boat. The boat can cross the ocean. So you now have the boat. So did you cross the ocean? It's up to you. So therefore, even with powerful mantras, it still becomes up to us whether we raise the platform of the Brahmana. And so in that lecture, I didn't remember. It was like 4 or 5 sannyasis. I couldn't remember what anybody said. I never learned the Sanskrit. I don't know what. So at the next day, my spiritual master was speaking to us, because it was Yajarani and myself. And he was trying to say, okay, did you all read this book or that book? Did you read the other book? We kind of like, yeah, okay, we're here in the Bhagavatam, we read this, we didn't read that. And he's like, oh, well, too late anyway. It was already done. But the idea was, and then he quoted a verse. And he said, do you know this verse? And I was like, no. He said, I quoted it yesterday in the initiation. And the verse was the qualities of the Brahmana. Samo dhamma tapassocham shantir arjavam evacha jnanam vijnanam astakam brahma karma svabhavajam. Giving us the qualities of the Brahmana. And it helps that we have a refresher course on what these Brahmanical qualities are, because that's what makes a Brahmana, the quality. Because those qualities is going to give us the vision that is going to lead society. It's not just a puja, it's not just a class, it's not just chanting mantras 3 times a day. So the qualities that comes out in that verse is here. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmanas work. And you could spend a lifetime trying to get one of these qualities, because they're really powerful qualities. Once I also, later on in an interview, my spiritual master put me on the spot and asked me to quote this verse. And because he asked me to quote the verse, I obviously forgot the verse. And I got stuck halfway. And then he said, please let it be known on record that Rukmini does not know the qualities of a Brahmana. So this one kind of sticks with me. But again, peacefulness. That the Brahmana is able to give peace, find peace in the chaos because there's knowledge. Self-control. That the Brahmana is turning away from what society is thinking to be wealth, or enjoyment. The Brahmana says no to that. Like, we were at Gauranga Swami's sannyas initiation a couple of weeks ago. And it's a powerful thing because someone is saying no to the material energy. Now you'd think, okay, yeah, we all say no to the material energy, but it's different. They're literally turning their back and publicly so that everybody can see and can know and can hold them accountable, saying no to the material energy. And then I thought, yeah, but all of us have to say no to the material energy. And that kind of scared me. I felt some fear there to say no to the material energy. So the Brahmana has self-control because they're turning away from the material energy. They're not under the play. They're not willing participants. They're not puppets under the play of the senses. Austerity, purity, tolerance. Tolerance is a hard one. It's really a hard one because it's like an eternal elastic band. It can stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch how much you're actually going to be able to tolerate. wisdom, knowledge and wisdom, because knowledge is to know and wisdom is to realize. And so the Brahmana is having realized knowledge, not just book knowledge, realized knowledge. And because unless the knowledge is realized, when you try to impart it, it falls flat on your face. I'll give you an example. Keshav Swami was doing a class on campus on Tuesday. When he came out of the class, he told me something that I thought was really profound. He said that the problem with, he said one of the things, now I'm using my own words, which makes it sound more Rukmini, because he's kinder. He said that one of the things he learned about university preaching was that, and preaching in general, was that we tend to give answers to questions that people are not yet asking. Because the fire, we haven't been able to ignite the questions within them. The fire of digestion isn't there, but we're feeding them answers. Because we tend to think that that's what it means. You sit on a vyasasana and you speak the Shastra. But if in a person's heart the questions are not ignited, then they can't digest that Shastra. So he was saying that the point is that we need to ignite the fire of the questions rather than giving them answers. So this has been like in my head, and I've been thinking about it. I chat GPT'd it in the morning, how to ignite questions in your presentation, And then I went to campus and tried to give a presentation. I tried to ignite the questions, and they all just looked at me. like, what? So what's your question? All quiet. Because it can't be done on just knowledge. Knowledge has to be deeply realized in order to evoke something in another person's heart. It's not just transference. I know, now you know, you're not the body, you're a spirit soul. Now you know, you're not the body, you're a spirit soul. No, I don't know. After chanting Hare Krishna for 2 decades, I still don't know, so, but it is being realized slowly, layer by layer by layer. Slowly the realization comes, and to the degree that we have realized, to that degree we can impart knowledge. So, am I a Brahmana? Little bit. Little bit Brahmana, given large shoes to fill, but all of us have a little bit Brahmana. But it's okay, because with that little bit Brahmana, we can do something for the world. That little bit Brahmana, the world still needs. So, Okay, I'm going to stop here. So I was thinking that that's the inward vision. When we read this verse, it can't be like, hey, okay, now, all of you who are not... so I should balance this one point that I made. So these days, we have people who take Brahmanical initiation, and they can be working in the world, and they're earning a salary. So now, how do we understand? Brahmana, not Brahmana? There is money, but you're not supposed to have money. So therefore, it is important that we can take guidance to know how to apply these principles. Because certain sectors will not think that that person who is earning a salary is a Brahmana. But if they have been given Brahmanical initiation by a bona fide spiritual master, how can you say they are not? How can you say they are not? And Srila Prabhupada initiated and gave second initiated to people who had jobs. And where would our movement be going if we say that anybody who earned a salary couldn't be a Brahmana? How would we be functional in today's society? When we cut all that off, then who's going to do the deity worship? Then the Grihasthas don't get an opportunity. So we have to see, as we take the essence of the Shastra, and you're going to apply it in today's life, we have to see that the path that the pure devotee has chalked transcends the tradition. It transcends the tradition. And so that when we go back to Vedic culture, we start walking a dangerous path. A dangerous path. If we try to just imprint Vedic culture on today, like, the analogy that came to my mind is like a fondant cake. print it and stick it there, fondant cake. You can't. You can't do it. It can't be done. If you do it, you alienate fractions of society from Krishna consciousness. And what is the purpose of the Brahmana? But to guide society towards Krishna consciousness. Not alienate society from Krishna consciousness. Then what have we achieved if we do that? So therefore, in this day and age, we have Brahmanas who may be earning a salary. We have Brahmanas who are women, and that didn't happen before. So we have to follow the path of the pure devotee. So this presents the internal vision of the Brahmana, and as in someone looking internally to see, am I a Brahmana? And then externally, when we see this verse, and Prabhupada is saying, everything is the property of the Brahmana, the Brahmana who has all these qualities can read this verse and not exploit people with it. Because the peacefulness, the austerity, the self-control, all that's there. So that Brahmana is not going to take this verse and say, hey, your money is mine. Because those qualities are there. But if those qualities are lacking, then that Brahmana can have that mentality. However, also then the opposite is true, that people in the world can think like, these poor mendicant temple devotees, here am I with all my income and life and power, giving something to those who don't have, like helping the needy. And this is what that verse is guarding against. He's saying that's not true. What you have doesn't belong to you. The fact that you have the opportunity to give it, that's your gift. That's a gift given to you. The fact that the Brahmana accepts your charity is their gift to you. So a shift in mentality, you think like, okay, there's a Swami, let's give him a donation. No. That's your benefit that you get that opportunity. So therefore, the vision of the Brahmana must turn inward and outward. Inward we can judge, how little bit Brahmana am I? Outward we can see that this is my opportunity to serve the Brahmana, is my reward. So I'm going to stop here. We have 2 minutes. Oh, no, we don't have minutes. Is there any thought or question or comment? I take one, if not. Okay, otherwise we end it here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki